Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about the FIRE movement, like financial independence, retire early. So, when I mention FIRE, I'm not talking about the fire that we used to cook beans. I'm talking about a movement that started in the Western countries, in the US and other countries, and it's actually growing like wildfire. So, I stumbled on this concept while watching a YouTube video, Mr. Money Mustache. So, yeah, I actually had to do a lot of research about it and to find out if we can adapt this to our Nigerian reality, our African reality. So if you haven't subscribed yet, click on the like button, share. My name is Daisy, and this is Growing Wealthy with Daisy, where I take you through my personal financial journey with the hopes that it will inspire you to do yours or to not make the mistakes that I have made, because I have made a lot of mistakes. But let's forget about my mistakes. Let's jump right into the FIRE movement. So, why FIRE movement? It's all about retirement. Retirement is a financial condition, okay? A lot of people, I've seen it, a lot of people are working into their 70s, into their 80s. I have met 70-year-olds still working because they know that the minute they stop earning a paycheck, they can no longer live successfully. Gone are those days when we used to say our children are our retirement. I mean, in my father's day, he could spend 2,500 naira to buy a brand new car. Right now, to buy even a Tokumbo Toyota, you're talking of 4 million, 5 million naira. So their days are not our days. So if you're expecting, okay, I'll train my children and when they are grown up, they will take care of me. If that's your retirement plan, you are planning to have a terrible retirement and it is not your children's fault. So we're going to talk about FIRE. What does FIRE mean? Okay, FIRE stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. Said that before. And it's a personal financial philosophy that encourages people to spend intentionally, save aggressively, invest consistently, and build enough wealth that the investment covers your living expenses. And this is similar to everything we've been talking about in this channel. You know, we've been talking a lot about planning for your retirement, your personal pension plan, and all that. So this fits right into what we have been doing in this season. The idea behind FIRE is that once your investments are enough to pay for your daily living, then work becomes optional. You can choose to retire or you choose to do some other type of FIRE. Now, the goal actually is not retiring early, although we have that at the end. The actual goal is financial independence. And this is only possible when you have invested to the point that your dividends, your income from your investment can pay for your living expenses. So where did this whole FIRE concept come out? Well, it was very popular in the United States. It started gaining popularity from 1990s and in the 2000s. And during COVID, a lot of us were at home, so we had access to YouTube. We're binge watching YouTube, and then we, got this concept, FIRE, and all that. So these ideas actually did not develop out of thin air rather. They were drawn from certain books like Your Money or Your Life, which I think everybody should read. If you're a bibliophile, you should have that in your library or in your stash. I don't have the library yet. I will get to that eventually. But I've got books everywhere, books there, books here, books all over. And so Your Money or Your Life, very important book to read. And then there's A Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins, one of my favorite books. I know I have mentioned it ad nauseum on this channel. If you haven't read it yet, you don't have it yet, go out, get a copy. And of course, Early Retirement Extreme by Jacob Lund Fisker, which is a new addition to the books I just got. And then there's the Mr. Money Mustache blog, which I have been following for a while. So the basic principle behind this whole thing is that the less money you need to live and the more money you invest, the faster you become financially independent. Okay? So the core formula behind FIRE is mathematical. It is based on mathematics and it stands on 4 pillars. The first pillar is you earn more. So you have to find a way to increase what you are earning right now. Because if you're earning, say, minimum wage 70,000 naira, you can't retire with 70,000 naira. So you have to find a way of increasing your income. And this could be through career advancement, starting a side business, freelancing, developing multiple streams of income, anything that brings in more money into your wallet. But the second pillar is that as your income increase, your spending decreases. Oh yeah, you spend less. So because the truth is that the wider the gap between your income and your expenses, the faster your wealth accumulates. So while you're making more money, if you're running the fire, this whole fire concept, then you have to deliberately reduce your expenditure to the barest minimum. Almost deprivation, but it's for a brief period of time. And then you save aggressively. That's the third pillar. So many fire followers save from 40%, 50%, 60%, even 70% of their income. Traditionally, when people advise us to save, they say we should save 15%. People like me will advise you to save 20%. But if you intend to run fire, financial independence at an early age, then you are encouraged to save minimum 40%, but you can save as much as 70% of your income. So you can imagine that this it depends on your income and depends on your responsibility. But it can be done. It sounds extreme, yes, but look at it this way. Most people spend then save what is left over. But in the fire movement, you save first, then you build your life around what is left. So keep that in mind as we continue. And then the final pillar is investment. Savings is not enough. Savings cannot create financial independence. Your money must be invested. So traditionally, when we talk of investment, we're talking of the stock market, we're talking of bonds, we're talking of dividend investments, we're talking of real estate, we're talking of things that bring in royalty, bring in dividend, bring in payment. Okay, and things that compound so that your wealth will grow. We've talked a lot about compounding. We've talked a lot about development. We've talked a lot about investment on this channel. There's so many videos on it. I will include a link at the end of the um, video. So now that we know the four pillars of fire, let's now talk about one rule that maybe it will work over there, but I'm not very sure it will work over here. They call it the 4% rule. And this 4% rule came from an actual study. They call the study the Trinity study, and it examines the historical US market returns and retirement portfolio for a very long period of time. Okay, so the idea is simple. It says that if your investment portfolio is large enough, you should be able to withdraw about 4% of its value each year. Of course, this is adjusted for inflation in the original research. So you should be able to withdraw about 4% of its value each year while having a reasonable chance of not running out of money over a long retirement. I'll give an example. Let us assume that your portfolio is 100 million naira. We're working towards that. So let's assume your portfolio is 100 million naira. 4% annually of 100 million naira is 4 million naira. Okay, so your monthly income will be about 333,000, which in present day Nigeria, it's not wealthy, but it's decent enough for you to live a decent life if you are retired. So this is basically how it works. That's how the 4% rule. Now, while that is really applicable in places like the US, in Nigeria, I like to adapt it a little bit and say maybe the 10% rule. You should be able to draw down 10%, or rather your investment should be able to produce a minimum of 10% per annum that you can draw down and live on. Remember, our inflation rate, headline inflation is 15.9%. So, and we know that food inflation is more than that. So the money that is coming in from your investment should account for inflation. So instead of even 10%, we should be looking at 20%. Can your portfolio give you 20% per annum? If it can, then you can live off that 20%, provided that the 20% is the equivalent of what you will spend in a year. So if your let's put it this way, if every month you need, I'm just spinning figures now, every month you need 100,000 naira to live decently. So your portfolio should be able to produce 1.2 million naira minimum as your 20%. And once you've done that, you've achieved financial independence, because whether you work or you don't work, your investments are paying for your lifestyle. Is there a one size fit all fire thing? I mean, are there different types of fire? Well, yes, the fire movement is very nuanced. Thank God for that, because some of us cannot do the traditional fire movement. We've got kids in school, universities around the corner, and all that sort of good things. So anyway, there are very different kind of lots of variations of fire. I'm just going to focus on a few, okay? There's the one that is called lean fire. This one is the minimalistic lifestyle. So you have very low expenses and you expect that in retirement you will continue to have very low expenses. So the your fire number for lean fire would be lean. I know it's lean fire. So let's assume like the 100,000 naira a month now, that is lean fire. That is baseline. That is minimalistic. You're not going to Dubai or anything, but you can afford to put food on your table, pay for your electricity, and all that. Now, there is traditional fire. Traditional fire gives you a comfortable lifestyle at retirement. So you're not looking for saving 50 million naira in your investment portfolio and living off that. No. So we're talking of the 100 million, the 150 million, 200, 250 million. That's the traditional fire. So you have enough to sponsor your retirement in a comfortable lifestyle, not necessarily an extravagant lifestyle. And then we have fat fire, which is financial independence with luxury. Now, this one is for the people who are able to invest over 1 billion naira and more. If you are in that category, then you can live a life of luxury while drawing down on your investment, and that is the goal. That's the goal for me anyway. Fat fire. And then we have coast fire, which, in my opinion, is one of the most practical types of practical nuances of the fire movement, because what coast fire means is that maybe for 10 years, you give yourself 8 to 10 years, you aggressively save and you aggressively invest within that 10 years. And it gets to a figure where the income coming in can fuel your investment. So you no longer have to add any more money to your investment. Whatever you're earning now, you can use it to live your life comfortably, knowing that your investments, the compounding effect has taken over and it is doing the work for you. So let's assume that maybe you started by saving aggressively, you're earning 100,000 naira, you're saving 50,000 naira aggressively. You do that for 10 years. By the 10-year mark, you will notice that the income from your investment is actually outstripping the 50,000. You're putting 50,000 inside. The income from your investment could be doing 200, 250,000 naira a month, and you are reinvesting it. You're not spending it. So at that time, you can decide, okay, I don't need to add any more money to my retirement investment. It can double and triple on its own, and I can actually live a comfortable life. So that is coast fire. And I think that is very, very achievable if you're willing to do rice and beans and rice, according to Dave Ramsey, for a period of time. And finally, the last one I'll talk about is a concept they call barista fire. It means that you've actually attained financial independence, like you can retire, but there's no point in retiring because you like what you do. So instead of having the stressful corporate job, you take a job that you actually enjoy. You go into consulting, you go into teaching, you go into farming, you're running a small business, you're freelancing, you're doing things that you actually like doing, that you would do whether it was bringing in money or not. So it is bringing in money, but you are already financially secure. Your investment is also bringing in money. So you can choose to do what you want to do. Now, the question you would ask is, can this actually work in Nigeria? Yes, but not exactly the way that it is being done in the US. Where everything in Nigeria, you have to modify it for our own economy. So yes, our number one challenge is high inflation rates. 15.9% right now. We don't know if it's going to get higher. Although, judging from the signals from the central banks, retaining monetary policy rate and all that, we think inflation is still a problem. So, because money loses its purchasing power quickly, we cannot live on 4%. You have to think aggressively, 10%, 20%. So you adjust for inflation. Currency depreciation. This one, the only way you can hedge against this is to ensure that some of your investments are dollar denominated or in other foreign currencies that are stable so that your currency is not depreciated. So you have diversification across different asset class. You don't focus only on financial assets. This is where your real estate, your land, and maybe gold and other things will come into play because it helps you to retain value. Nigeria has very limited social security. Most of you watching this video don't have a pension fund. You don't have pension fund at all. Your company doesn't do pension. we are all in the same boat. So yes, there is that. So you cannot even say, unlike them over there, they can say, okay, they will add social security. There's no social security for us. So we are our social security. So we have to do twice the work that they are doing. And then we have family responsibility, aka black tax. The truth of the matter is that you cannot avoid this one. So you have to plan it into your retirement. So, okay, a certain percentage of that retirement will go towards this. And so you factor it in when you're doing your fire calculation. So, what do you invest in order to achieve fire? I think we've talked about that a lot on this channel, but I'll mention a few. So, we can talk of money market funds, which I personally think is a good place for anybody who is starting investing to start. So, you have money market funds, that's where you keep your emergency savings. It helps with liquidity and you preserve your capital, but that is not the main driver of growth. Your main growth driver, of course, will be your equity funds and your ETFs. Okay, for those of you who do not like holding single stocks like myself, so your equity fund and your ETFs, and of course, government securities. How can you go into retirement without government securities? Federal government savings bond. I am a proponent of that one. I'm enjoying that one, and of course, your treasury bills. Then, if you have a larger sum of money, 10 million, 15 million, you put it in federal government bonds. For 10 years, you're doing like 22% per annum. So you're beating inflation for 10 years. Think about it. And then, of course, we have real estate. So you have to think about getting that house and getting not just a house for yourself, but also building an attache that you can rent out, because rental income is very, very important. And of course, when you hold some part of your money in land appreciation. Lord Jesus. One property that we helped somebody sell last year for like 70 million, that property we flipped it again for almost 100 million. So 110 million. So yeah, the person actually made bank, and it's cool. I wish it were my own property and I'm not just one of the long line of agents that are working it. And then there is business ownership. If you can, if it is in your nature to own a business, I think that you should own a business. You don't have to quit your job right now to start a business. You can start it as a side hustle. But once it starts paying the bills and it has taken on a life of its own, then I think you can resign and you run your business. And that is financial independence in a nutshell. So if you still haven't liked this video, this one has been a very long video. What are you waiting for? Click and like, share, comment. Tell me how you intend to implement fire into your retirement planning. Because remember, retirement, it's not your children. No. If you don't plan to retire, you will suffer. And even God cannot be held responsible for that. So fire doesn't mean living a miserable life. It means suffering for now so that your retirement will be secured. So thank you for watching, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.